And so, okay, so I'm just going to show you how to use our online platform. I'm going to share my screen with you and take you to our website. So I don't know if anyone has had a chance to play with this already. So everyone who's here is here because they applied for this grant that we had for test kits for Ontarians. If you haven't had time to fill in the survey in one of the emails that I sent you, then please do that. And otherwise, I'll send you a reminder early next week. So the test kit you'll be getting is this mini test kit. We're going to go through all the components in a little bit. But one of the first things you need to do is go to the app, which is just app.waterrangers.ca, and you're going to want to create a profile for yourself. So in the corner here, I already have a profile. So I can just show you what it looks like for me. So you would just have your name. If you don't want your real name on there, that's fine. You can just use a nickname or initials. It's going to ask you for an email in case we want to contact you. And I don't have many observations, but some of our more enthusiastic testers have a lot of data here. And so you're going to have observations and locations associated to you right here. And you can also be part of certain groups. So if some of you are part of like lake associations or different groups, you can easily create a group like that. If you're not the only one using the test kit and testing, then somebody else can have a profile and link it themselves to that group. And as the admin of the group, you'll get emails if you want. These are all options. So you can have emails about the different observations that are coming in through your region, and you can define the region itself. So the first step is to just create this. There's one thing I want to show you. So once you have an account, you can edit your profile in whichever way you want. The one thing that's interesting is that you can edit your observation form. So that means that if you have equipment that tests something different than what's in your mini test kit, and you would like to add that to your observations, then you can come here, and we have a lot of different parameters that you could add to your custom form that aren't there for everyone. So just by adding these, then they're going to show up on yours, so you can add all of that data. And one thing that I'll talk to you about soon at the end is that we have a new feature that's going to be launched in the next couple of weeks on our app that is a machine learning algorithm. And it's pretty cool. And it's going to be one of these options in this custom form. So in a couple of weeks, I'll probably send you a little email, say, if you want to help us out with this study, you can add this as an option for your custom form. Okay, let me just go back. Okay. So if you want to create a group, or if you want to look at some interesting work that other groups are doing, then once you're on the app, you just want to go on the top where it says groups. And these are all of the groups that are already using our platform. So there's a lot of really cool ones. And if you want to create your own, then you would just go at the bottom of the page, and it says want to add your own group, find out more. And then there's all of the information about what a group entails and the benefits of creating a group for you. And then you would just say sign up now, and it's going to take you to the form to create your group. So if you have your own specific testing protocol, like I said, you're testing more things, you could add them in there. There could be a link to a website for your groups, some photos, if you want to advertise it that way. So I'm not going to do that. I don't need to create a group. But just note that when you create your profile, you'll be automatically added to the group. That's the 2020 mini test kit receivers group. And that's just so that on my end, I can manage how things are going, make sure that you're doing your observations, and see if you have any issues with the equipment from any of your test results up there. So that's it for the groups. Now, if you want to add an observation, I'll show you how to do that on your phone, actually. It's always easier. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to show you my phone. So we have an iPhone app for Android. Sorry, what am I saying? A phone app for iPhone and Android. And it's just Water Rangers, and you can download it. And you're going to have to sign in using that same login that you had. And then it's going to, this isn't really working. Put my brightness down. Does this work better? Technology, people. Okay, this kind of works. Okay, so it's just gonna look like this, and you can easily add location or add an observation, and it's gonna follow you around. So you would just, press on the location tab at the bottom here, and then you could do from either your current location, so it's gonna find you if you have data, and then you would just add an observation. So it's found me, and then I would just do add observation, or you have the option of adding an issue. So issues are for reporting, let's say, trash or pollution or anything that seems off. So if you see like a lot of dead fish or a lot of littering on the ground, and you want to make a little report for people in your area to be able to see it, then you could report that as well. And then you could do a little follow-up. You could go back in a week or two and do an update on that issue and let people know what's happened in that area. So if we're adding an observation, then you're gonna have a lot of details to fill in, and we're gonna go through all of those details when I show you how to use the test kit. If you don't have cellular data where you are to upload this right away, then it doesn't matter. You can just enter it everything on there. There's like an offline mode, and then when you're back home or back somewhere where there's Wi-Fi, it'll upload all of that information as well. So you can also, this is great to do with the little ones. We have little notepads included. The one in yours is a little bit smaller. This is the one for the large test kit. You have a little notepad, so you can put in all of that information manually if you want as well. And it's gonna have all the same information as the app. And then when you get home, you can either fill in that information from your phone or from the computer if that's easier for you. And we also always encourage people to take some photos just so you can find the place where you tested again, or just to give people an idea of what the conditions were like, the weather conditions, or if you see something fun like wildlife or plants that you want other people to take note of, then definitely take some photos. Perfect. So I'm gonna walk you through now your kits. And for those of you who have it, you can follow me in your field guide. So this is, once again, the large version, so it's a little bit bigger than what you're gonna find, but all of the information is on there. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is pick a spot, thinking just where should you test? And we always try to encourage people to go to a spot that they really love or that they care about. And from everyone's introductions, it sounds like you all kind of already have a spot in mind. So some place that you call home or that's close to home and that you want to test. So that's a great way to go about it, because you're going to care a lot more about the results from a place that you truly care about. And the second thing is to always think about your safety first. So you don't need to go on a boat or on a kayak or anything. You can definitely just test from the shore if that's easier for you, or from a dock. And just watch out for the terrain, make sure to be safe. We usually recommend being in pairs just to make it easier. And if you go alone, then let somebody know where you're going to be so that they can go find you if anything happens or if they get worried for whatever reason. So speaking of safety, sometimes you can be in a spot that's a little bit hard to reach the water. So we have a lot of times like areas that are really rocky, like especially where I am. I'm in Montreal. And when I go test, the water is not always easily accessible. So in your mini test kit, you have what we call a reacher stick included in there, but it's really just a selfie stick. But we've been using them to collect the water. So you would just stretch it out. You can stretch it out after. You're gonna have a sample cup. Yours is gonna be a little bit smaller than this. This is the large version. And you would just attach it. I always have trouble with this. Okay, it's a little cup, it's easier. Perfect. So we usually tell people to attach it at the top, because if you attach it at the bottom, it's not really as stable and you can sometimes lose your cup in the water. So just watch out with that. And now with this reacher stick that's pretty long, then you can go reach the water a lot more safely. One thing to note, and there's a little reminder, is that you always want to rinse your cup 3 times, your sample cup, just to make sure that whatever leftover water is in there, you rinse it out before you take your new sample so that it's not contaminated with some water from a previous sample. So actually, before you want to take your sample, the first thing to do is to go measure the air temperature. And you have this little air thermometer in your test kit. And we usually recommend people hang it in a tree or in a shaded area. Just don't put it around your neck or anything, because your body temperature is going to affect your reading. And try not to rely on apps for the weather, because it's not always super specific to the area where you are. So that's why we ask people to take the temperature, and just wait 5 minutes before you take the reading. So if you hang it in a tree, you can go do all of your other tests and then come back and take your reading. Just make sure not to forget it in the tree, which I have done many times. So after air temperature, the next thing you'll find in your test kit is this, which is a conductivity meter and also a water temperature meter. This device is pretty cool. So the first step is to just turn it on. So with the top button up here, you have to press pretty hard. So sometimes people say, oh, my conductivity meter doesn't work. Try to just press it for a couple of seconds. It's gonna cycle through, it's gonna look a little bit funny, and at some point it's gonna stabilize. So the reading is in microsiemens for the conductivity, and your temperature should just be in Celsius. So the next thing to do, which is really important and people often forget, is that there's a cap here. So you just want to pull, and you got to pull pretty hard, especially when it's new, to reveal the little electrodes here, which are going to take our conductivity reading. So conductivity is going to help us measure all of the dissolved salts and solids in the water. So I just have tap water for now. So we're just going to do the test here. I'm just pouring it in. So somebody had mentioned that there was a water body that had quite high salt levels. So you could definitely see it with a conductivity meter on there. Or a lot of the times we've seen in cities that in the winter, because of the road salts, the conductivity really shoots up. So that's something that you can see if you test quite consistently. Okay, so super easy. You just put it in your cup and you wait until those numbers stabilize, and you're going to get your reading for both temperature and conductivity. So conductivity really varies based on like the bedrock especially, and like I said, any other thing that might find its way in the water, or if you've had a really large storm and that's bringing in a lot of sediment into the water, then that could lead to a spike in conductivity. So when you test quite regularly and you note those environmental conditions, then you're going to be able to see, like, is this conductivity coming from just a storm, or for a large rain, or could it be due to pollution, or what could be affecting it? Okay, so I have my reading. It's 278 and 23.1. I'm not going to write it down, but you should write it down either in your app or in your little booklet. And then just to turn this off, it's a little finicky. Oh, I've added a little towel to my kit, which you might want to bring with you. It's just nice to wipe things down so that you don't put them back in there all wet. So to just turn it off, you just press the button again, and you sometimes have to press it for a couple seconds. And these things can be a little finicky. So if it ever happens to you that you press a button or anything like that, and you don't know like what's happening, the screen's a little funny, you just unscrew the cap, and there's the 2 batteries in there. So you just take out a battery and you put it back in and turn it back on, and that should fix all the issues. One thing that's important to know about these is that they need to be calibrated. Usually we recommend yearly. If you skip a year, it's not the end of the world. They usually keep their calibration pretty well. But just reach out to us and we can hook you up with some calibration solution. The ones you're receiving are already calibrated, so you don't have to worry about that for this year. The second thing you'll find in your kit is going to be these little test strips. So these are actually pool test strips, but we've done a lot of tests with different test strips to see which ones are more accurate and which ones have a good range for rivers and lakes, and these ones were the best. I'm just gonna take another bottle because this one's missing info. And in the back, there's a little scale with all of the different meaning for the different parameters. I think yours might actually look a bit different. I think some of you are going to be getting. There's somebody in the waiting room. Let me just admit this person. Okay, so some of you might be getting your test strips in a little box like this, and so your scale is going to be in the back instead of the bottle. That's just so that it fits easier in the test kit. So these are pretty easy to use. I'll show you. So you just want to make sure you have dry hands so you don't get any water in the bottle. You shake one out, take it out, take your water sample, dip it in 2 seconds, take it out, and now you want to wait 20 seconds. And while we wait, we'll just go through the different things that we test here. So the first thing is going to be chlorine. So these are pool test strips, and that's why there's chlorine on there. Normally, you should not find chlorine in the water you're testing unless you're close to a water treatment plant or some sort of industrial water. So just, you can note that, you know, if you ever find some chlorine, you could try to find what the source of it would be. The second thing is pH. So a pH of 6 to 8 is quite normal for different water bodies. So when you test your water body a few times, you're going to see what the normal pH is, more or less. So that range should be pretty small. And then if there's ever any fluctuations, then you can start to wonder, oh, why are these fluctuations happening? So the alkalinity and hardness are related to each other and also related to conductivity. So it's about the different salts that are dissolved in there, and the calcium and the magnesium. And I don't know the ranges by heart of what these are, but if you ever have any questions about what the normal ranges are, then all that information is in your field guide. So while you're out there, if you get a reading and you're unsure, like, oh, should I be worried about this? Just go look in your field guide, and all that information is there. Okay, so I have my readings for my little test strip. So usually this test, we say, is best done with 2 people because we all read colors quite differently. And so when you have somebody else that's validating your results, then that's always best. If you don't have someone, that's fine too. So we always tell people, start from the lower end of the scale and slowly bring up to see where it matches. So you want to do one at a time. So I would look at chlorine and see what my chlorine reading is. And mine is, mine's pretty much between 0, maybe a little bit, 0.5. This is tap water, so it might have been treated a bit. I could write that down. And if you ever get a value that's between like 2, so between the 0 and the 0.5, then I could write down 0.25. Oh, Susan is going to be leaving. Nice meeting you, Susan, too. And if you have any questions, Susan, you can always reach out to me after. Thanks for being here. Okay. For pH, this pad is a little bit thicker and it's usually quite colorful. So you can just bring it and try to find. So I would say I'm about in between here, more or less. So between 7.5 and 7.8. So I would just write a value in between. And then we would have alkalinity. So we always say start from the beginning. Clearly you can see that I'm like about here. So I would just write down my value of 120. And then for my hardness, same thing. I'm pretty close to like this value of 100. So all these values are pretty normal. There's nothing to worry about. And I mentioned this study that we're doing with these test strips. So if you don't have somebody to help you validate your results, or if you just want to make sure that your results are good, then in your mini test kits, I'm pretty sure Kat included these with yours. There's going to be this, yeah, okay, I see a head shake. So you have this reference card. And what this reference card does is that it's going to help this machine learning algorithm we have to read the values on your test strip. So this is kind of in beta mode, so we're just launching it in a couple weeks. So it might be a little difficult at the beginning, but the more people use it and test it and give us feedback, then the better it's going to get. So all you have to do is open up that feature in your app when it's going to be available, and you want to place your test strip here, and you're going to have to take a photo of just this. There's going to be a square that appears on the screen, and you place that square around this reference card, and then after a few minutes, the algorithm is going to do its job, and it's going to spew back some results to you, and you're going to be able to see if those results are close to yours or if they're different. So all of these little dots are just to train the algorithm. So depending on the lighting, they're going to be a different color. So these are reference for the algorithm to read. There's little instructions here at the bottom also. So that's it for the test strips. I'm just gonna see, I feel like I didn't know for hardness. I can find this for you, yeah, right. So for alkalinity and hardness, we have these normal values. in here. So all that information is in your little guide. And also on the website, if you ever don't know what something means, and there's always a little question mark next to everything, and you can always click it, and it's going to give you some little diagrams and some useful information about what to look out for. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, you'll also find in your test kits these little roll pack bags, and also some latex gloves. So if you are ever at a site that looks quite contaminated and you're like, ooh, this is iffy, I'm not sure I want to touch it, I'm not sure I should be doing water tests here, I think I want to take this to a lab. You are welcome to do that. Water Rangers is not affiliated with any labs, and you don't cover lab costs, but we encourage it. If you want to know more, then it's definitely something you can do. So we include, did someone have a question or just unmuted? Okay, all good. So the gloves, I said latex, but they're not actually latex. They're sorry, I'm just gonna mute whoever is there. Okay, perfect. So they're actually nitrile. So if you have any latex allergies, don't worry about it. Just out of habit, I said latex. And you have these little packs, which are called roll packs. And so you would just open it. You have to rip off the top. Usually they come sealed so that they're really sterile. And you can just open them up and take your water sample. And you could write on it whatever date it is, where you picked it up, and maybe take some photos of yourself doing that. Just so that you can go back to it after if the lab asks or anything like that. And then you could bring that to a lab for additional testing if you want. And you'll find in your test kit a little goodie bag that has information about your connectivity meter. I think it has some postcards in case anyone asks you any information about Water Rangers. You can just give them some info. It's got some stickers and also a business card. Because you'll see that once you start testing the water and you're out and about, a lot of people are going to come ask you like, hey, what are you doing? I want to find out a little bit more about this. Where can I get some info? So it's just nice to share with them that information. So I think this is it for me for the test kit. Let me just double check that I gave you guys all the info. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know if there's any questions or if you need me to revisit something that I showed you.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I just wondered, I've looked through the contents and I don't have the card for the phone algorithm thing that you were working on. Is it possible to get one mailed to me?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Let me write myself down a little message and I'll just mail it to you.
Laura, I have a quick question as well.
Okay, let me just write it down. I'm like a note taker. I have to take this down or I'm gonna forget it. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
So in terms of where we're testing, I know I live on Lake Ontario, right in the Toronto Harbourfront area. Should I be testing there every single time for the next couple Sundays, or would you rather us take some samples from like ravines and creeks that are flowing into Lake Ontario as well?
That's a great question. So I forgot to mention that a little bit. So we always encourage people to test less locations, but more frequently the same locations. Because what you want to do is to be able to build kind of a baseline idea of what normal values are for a water body. So like I said, since there is such variability in connectivity, pH, and all of these different parameters, if you just get one reading, it's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to kind of get an idea of trends or when something's going wrong, since you only have one value there. Oh, Kat's joining us. Hi, Kat.
Hi. Sorry I'm so late. I was just on another call.
It's okay. So Kat's the one who started Water Rangers. She's our executive director. So Kat, we're just in question period. So I just went over everything already. Okay. Meg, did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. I'm also just, I have another question, but I'll leave open the floor for anyone else just right now.
You can go ahead.
So I guess like my question is like, okay, so I'm going to be testing these sites. Like I'm going to test right on the waterfront. Should I be concerned about things like testing right after a rainfall? Like I know that oftentimes in Toronto, at least the E. coli really tends to jump up right after a rainstorm. Should I kind of avoid that, or should I not worry about those things?
If you're worried about it, then I definitely recommend wearing some gloves. and making sure that you wash your hands or any part of you that's touched the water right after. We don't test for E. coli. So I did show you how to use those little World-Pack bags. So if that's something that you want to get lab tested, then you could do that. But for your own safety, definitely wear some gloves and some protective gear if you're worried about that where you're testing the water.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions either about the test kit or about the platform? Laura?
How deep do you want us to go with the cup?
Oh yeah, that's great. I did forget to mention that. So we always recommend 10 centimeters under the water, just because the top is going to be a little bit warmer and different. So just dip it 10 centimeters under, and that's why the reacher stick is great. You're not going to get your hands wet.
And how often would you recommend testing? Like, I know you want to do it this Sunday, but like how often if you want fewer locations but more tests? Yeah, so our national testing days are every last Sunday of the month on at 10 a.m. And alternative days are either the Saturday or the Monday. So if you can't make it on the Sunday, then try to go the day before or after. And that's kind of like the minimum that we ask people, or that we would like people to test. If you want to go out and test weekly, that's great. But just whichever spots you pick, then just try to be pretty consistent in how often you test, so that, like I said, we get a nice baseline for those areas. Any other questions or comments? So just show of hands if you've received your test kit. Yeah, a couple people. Yeah, okay. Okay. So as you know, like, things have been pretty delayed, unfortunately, with the mailings. So hopefully everyone's going to get their test kits by next week at the latest. And if you can't go out and test this weekend, then you can definitely go out and test the next weekend. Totally understand, it's not your fault that the mail is so slow right now, and we just appreciate all the results that go online. And just know that we do all the quality assurance manually right now. So if you ever get an email from me saying an observation looks a little funny or something, and sending you an email about it, then that's totally normal. So I usually check them weekly with the help of a couple of other people from Water Rangers. So just know that if you're unsure about something, you can totally reach out to us, or otherwise we'll double check everything. Any last questions or comments? Yeah, Sean.
At the end of this, pardon me, I think I mentioned that a lot of people in the community are really interested in this. Like, is there a presentation of data that we can do at the end that you have a system for helping us, I guess, organize? We don't actually have that right now. The website will make little graphs for you with your data when you have a little bit. I can show you what that looks like super quick. So for the groups that test really often, you're going to see that it's going to show you what it looks like. And if you ever wanted one of us to give a presentation about Water Rangers and help you out with organizing your data, then that's definitely something that we can do, and we're willing to do some Zoom presentations to help out. So I'm just going to this observation that has quite a bit of data. So we are going to have these little observation summaries for you that are going to show you some trends. And like I had mentioned, if you're ever unsure about any parameter, you can always click the what's this, and a little bit more information about that parameter is going to show up. So that's what we have for that. But Sean, if you ever want to...
Can I add something quickly, Laura?
Right.
Yeah, so you can, I don't know if she showed you, but you can also download the data. So if you have someone who likes to make their own charts, and we're actually about to release a feature that makes the graphs bigger so that you can overlay two parameters over top of each other. It's not released yet. But the other thing is we always work with organizations if they need help interpreting the data or coming up with how to present it to their community. We love helping with that. So we've done that with Mississippi Lakes and a few other groups already. So we're happy to help. And what it does is it helps us realize what kind of tools you need to.
Yeah, perfect. So just like Kat mentioned, if you want to download any data, yours or somebody else's, you just have to go usually to a location. So you find the location you want.
And under the information about that location, you're going to see the little button of download data. And you just click that and you're going to get some Excel data.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, concerns? Okay, I think we're good. If there's anything, I think you all have my email, so you can definitely just shoot me an email whenever and I'll get back to you quickly. And if you have trouble with anything, we can do a little quick Zoom call and just figure out how to use something really quickly, so that's no issue. And for those who haven't filled out the survey, you'll be getting a little reminder email from me the next week. And just check for your test kit. I know that Canada Post is a little bit unreliable posting even the delivery expected date right now, but just keep an eye out for it. And if there's ever any issues, just shoot me an email. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have fun water testing this weekend.
Have fun.
Thank you.